Then we're thinking about those tumor promoters. Insulin is indeed a tumor-promoting agent. So what you want to be aiming for is keeping your blood sugar as near to this optimal line as possible. So if this line here represents the optimal amount of glucose that your body requires, what we want to do is stay as near to this line as possible. So by eating your breakfast that's got complex carbohydrates and protein in it. And then as your blood sugar starts to dip, you might want a mid-morning snack. And then it gets to lunchtime. And then the afternoon, lost my pen, afternoon snack. And then evening. This is optimal. This is where your insulin levels are going to be kept in track. However, this is the typical Western diet. Wake up in the morning and you have 2 slices of toast for breakfast. Massive rise in blood glucose, followed by a massive spike in insulin levels. Now we're back below this optimal line. So this is when we start craving for something. Oh, I'm so low, my energy, I just can't focus. I know, I'll have a cup of coffee and I'll have a couple of biscuits. Again, a massive spike in glucose, a massive release in insulin. Now it's time for lunch. Well, I'm too tired to bring any lunch to work with me. I know, I'll just pop to Marks & Spencer's and get a meal deal. So 2 slices of white bread sandwich, packet of crisps, and a fruit smoothie. Because they're healthy, yeah? Yeah? It's 3 o'clock, and I am barely able to do my work. So it's somebody's birthday in the office today. They're brought in cakes. So I'm going to have a cake. That's going to give me a pick-me-up. So as I've worked late, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a ready jar of sauce, and I'm going to make a spaghetti bolognese. Big plate of spaghetti, garlic bread to go on the side, little blob of bolognese, but I haven't bothered to add any extra vegetables or anything into that. And now I'm going to have a couple of glasses of wine to go with that. That's not optimal. That's a roller coaster. I've been on less scary rides at Alton Towers than that. Less highs and lows than you're having in a day or your clients are having in a day. This is going to promote cancer because insulin is a tumor-promoting agent. But then we want to be thinking about getting in those nutrients. We've talked about most of these, the folic acid, the antioxidants, the phytochemicals, the low-fat plant diet. Micronutrient deficiencies can mimic radiation or chemicals in damaging DNA. Those micronutrients is what comes from your fruits, your vegetables, your salads. Are you getting? So the government have released a 5-a-day campaign, which has been excellent to get people who didn't eat any. Can you believe that some people don't eat any phytonutrients, don't eat any fruits or vegetables? I came across somebody the other week. Long story, I ended up living in a hotel for a period of time due to an explosion in my house. And at the same time, there was a student living there on teaching practice. We were there for 5 months, my family and him. We got to know each other during this time. In 5 months, he never ate one vegetable. He never ate one piece of salad, and he never ate one piece of fruit. Now, granted, he was obese. His diet was the typical beige diet. But oh my goodness me, was that a reality check that there's still people not eating any. So the 5-a-day campaign was great where that was concerned. But is it enough? No. You and I, without cancer, need to be thinking about 7 minimum, ideally 9 portions a day. And anybody with cancer, I need to be looking at 12 plus portions. So how do you do that? You do that by incorporating juices or smoothies. You do that by incorporating soups. You do that by incorporating things like dishes that are full of, so curries, chilies, casseroles that are full of phytonutrients in there. Snacking on vegetable sticks. Drinking soup during the course of the day, or like a broth. That's how you're going to get your optimal number of portions in there. So we want to optimize our micronutrient intake through our diet. And we're not even talking about supplements at this point. We're just talking about our diet. So we've covered most of this. So you tell me that how Hippocrates, back in, 500 BC, said, let food be thy medicine. What went wrong? Why aren't we at that point that we're all using food as our medicine? Why is it that we're so reliant on a pill to fix an ill? Why is it that we're in the mentality that if we go visit a doctor, we only go when we're sick, and if we're not left with our green script, then we've been hard done to? Who is it that's brainwashed us? I'm not sure if it's the pharmaceutical companies, I'm not sure if it's the pharmaceuticals' impact on the government, but something somewhere has gone wrong from when this guy back then said that we needed to use food effectively. So there's more than 25,000 different bioactive components are thought to occur in the food consumed by human beings. So these are from plants, animal sources, mushrooms, metabolism of food chemicals by bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract. How many different food components are you eating? How many different food components are your clients eating? They come in with the same breakfast every day, the same collection of lunches, and the same collection of dinners that, like I said, are low in those micronutrients. So defining which component is instrumental in bringing about a phenotypic change is exceedingly challenging because of the complexity of foods and the myriad of sites where food components may function. So how about if we encourage a wide variety with that rainbow of colour, with those optimal types of protein, those essential fatty acids, the carbohydrates being complex carbohydrates, and then we can meet the full spectrum of need. And since cancer incidence is projected to increase during the foreseeable future, there is a desperate need for defining effective prevention strategies. There have been some pioneering people that have stood up. I'm thinking most about Jamie Oliver at this stage, who stood up and said, we need change. But that wasn't enough. He was returned by so much animosity. It takes more of us to stand up and make those changes. So that's what's something that's so exciting to me as a practitioner is I've got that strength, but on my own it's not enough. And this is why we need to work together as a team to say we can make action, we can change the foreseeable future. Because if not, I don't know where this is going to be for my children and my children's children when cancer's concerned. And that's not even touching upon the other diseases. So Mountain Evidence continues to highlight dietary change as an effective and cost-efficient approach to reducing cancer risk for modifying the biological behaviours of tumours. Maybe we need to put more money into education and research around prevention. How many times do you see on the news or in the papers about postcode lottery when it comes to drugs? Some drugs costing 30, 40, 50, 60, 90,000 pounds a year, and how she can have it in that county, but I can't have it in this county. Should we really be waiting until it's that desperate? How much money does it cost to provide people with a good quality diet? And again, should we have to wait until you're morbidly obese to offer you a free gym membership and a free band-in surgery? What about those of us that aren't morbidly obese, but yet still have a vested interest in our health and our wellness? So we've talked about the way that foods are cooked. We don't want to be char grilling them. We don't want to be microwaving them. This is something that, I wish there was enough research out there to say that microwave causes cancer. And yet there isn't really any fixed research out there. However, there is a study about how, when heating up blood before transfusion in a microwave, the client that received it died, despite the blood being of the optimal temperature at point of transfusion. What the microwaving did is it changed the biological structure of that blood. So surely it changes the biological structure of your food. I won't even allow a microwave in my house for fear of the radiation that might be emitted through the back of it, let alone, cooking food within it. So ideally, we want to be focusing on steaming, boiling, and stewing food. Getting all of those nutrients to stay within the food. So these are just some of the things that we want to be thinking about avoiding. So we've talked about nitrates. Also acrylamides. Acrylamides are what we find particularly in potato-based products when we cook them at high temperatures. So that's your chips, your fries, your crisps. They're carcinogenic. How many children have a packet of crisps in their lunchbox every day? How many children have fries 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week? So we're providing them with carcinogenic properties on a regular basis. Oops. And I keep putting lines on there. And then there's alcohol. Alcohol is classed as a group A carcinogen. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm partial to a glass of red wine. I see it that I get the resveratrol in it. Although I'll be really honest and say you have to drink an awful lot of red wine to get the beneficial effects of resveratrol. And whilst I'd like to bow down to the challenge, I know that it's not good for me. So what we want to be thinking about doing is minimizing alcohol in our clients. And when I've got a client who's actively got cancer, I don't want their liver to be detoxifying the properties of alcohol. I can't afford for them to have a fatty liver. I need their liver to be working at optimal rates. So they're just some of the cancers associated with increased risk where alcohol is concerned. So colon cancer risk increases by 10% if you drink 1 glass of wine a day, and increases by 25% if you drink 2 glasses of wine or 1 pint of beer a day. That's not a lot of alcohol, is it? No man would think that a pint a day was a lot of alcohol. It's just a nice relaxing beer on my way home from work, or just a can whilst I'm just chilling out after my day, or I'm just going to have a glass of wine because I deserve it. It all comes down to that emotional attachment of food, doesn't it? Journal of National Cancer Institute in 2009 shows that each additional alcoholic drink regularly consumed per day was associated with 11 additional breast cancers per 1,000 women up to the age of 75. So there's a lot of research out there, guys, that alcohol causes cancer. Newest study, drinking more than 7 drinks a week is associated with a 60% higher risk of bowel cancer compared to non-drinkers. That's a lot of an increase in risk. And then there's our obesity that we've already covered. There are multiple cancers associated with obesity, and it is now at epidemic levels. But you know, what the sad thing is that obesity is a socially acceptable addiction. If I was to put on my Facebook write-up, I've just injected myself with cocaine. I think you inject cocaine, don't you? I'm not very good at the different types of drugs, so I probably haven't done the right drug. I'm going to inject myself with heroin, okay? Then I know that you inject that one. Sorry, I'm not really an expert in different drugs that I put into my veins. Would anybody think that that was cool? No, my friends would probably be thinking, oh my goodness, get my kids away from her, because she's a nutter. But yeah, if I put on my Facebook, okay, probably not me, because everybody would think, oh my goodness me, what Joe just said. But if I put on my Facebook, just a whole Cadbury's chocolate orange, Terry's chocolate orange. Again, not very good with chocolate either, am I, guys? People would go, yay, go you. I know this because one of my associates did a very similar thing just the other week. She got so many likes. Yet somebody said on there, why stop at 1? I can eat 2 in a night. So it's very socially acceptable addiction. And that's what it is. It's an addiction. So 25 to 40% of kidney, esophageal, and endometrial cancer may be attributed to obesity. A BMI above 23 increases your risk. It's not high. Yeah? I'm seeing more and more people with BMIs of 30, 35, 40. I had somebody come in the other week with a BMI of 44. They were referred from their GP. Obese, overweight people have 34% and 9% higher cancer risks, respectively. 14% of all cancer deaths in men and 20% of all cancer deaths in women are attributed to excess body fat. And it's where you carry that fat as well. You know, if you've got that fat sat there around your abdomen, then that is definitely putting you at an increased risk. Colorectal cancer risk is increased by 15% with every 5 kilograms per meter squared. Breast cancer risk increased, endometrium risk increased. This is a lot of cancers, guys. So possible mechanisms. Excess body fat changes hormone metabolism. And remember, hormones play together. Estrogen levels in postmenopausal women are 50 to 100% higher among heavy versus lean women. So when you do that 2:4:16 ratio of your obese client, Excess body fat changes in metabolism, and excess body fat negatively affects immune system. And there you go, there's just some of the factors that we're taking into consideration. So just simplistically, if we're thinking about it from an estrogen point of view, if we don't have the fibre to bind to the estrogens and help clear them through the bowel, and also if we don't have that right optimal environment, which includes the fibre that's going to clear bacteria through the bowel that could raise the beta-glucuronidase that can shear off the glucuronic acid molecule, then that's going to put us at a risk of increased estrogen load. If we've got a diet high in those fats, saturated fats, trans fats, it's also going to work on increasing that estrogen level. However, if we've got a diet low in fat, but yet still got the optimal level of essential fats, and a diet high in fibre, then that's going to decrease our estrogen levels and make sure we get to that optimal level. Coupled with, remember, it's not just as simple as that. Now think back to what I was talking about. It's important to have the methylation. It's important to have the right amount of glucuronic acid or the right of beta-glucuronidase within the gut and those genetic ability to clear estrogens through the body. Then we've got protein. Now, I'll be really honest, majority of people that come into my office are still protein deficient, unless they're a bodybuilder and they're coming in having 3 shakes, 20 eggs, 4 chicken breasts and a tin of tuna a day. And then yes, we do need to be worried about the amount of protein that they've got going in there. What I find is that people's quality of their protein is the biggest area of concern. They may be not having protein with their breakfast because they're having cereal and toast and jam. They might not be having much protein with lunch. Because remember, when you go out and you buy a sandwich, you've got your 2 slices of white bread, quite thick slice of white bread, with a thin slicing of protein down the middle. Because remember, protein is money, and they want to cut the cost on that by making sure it's the minimal amount. And then they've got their evening meal, where they might have a great big steak or 2 chicken breasts. Your body can't break all that heavy-duty meat down before it goes to bed. What we want to be doing is having the protein dripped in throughout the course of the day with each meal and snack. And that's going to help get those blood sugar levels into that more optimal level. There's another line. And then there's that oxidative stress and inflammation as a proliferative factor. So we've talked quite a bit about inflammation. We could be thinking about what we need to do to reduce inflammation. So if we think about the inflammatory cascade, so if we think about inflammation, we think about all of the different inflammatory cytokines that are being produced. Let's first of all, so this line here represents the inflammatory cascade. I'm not going to draw it out in detail. It is in some of your other lecture slides. But this side here is going to represent the medical model and think about what they've got to offer. So down here, when you've got inflammation, first of all they're going to put in is NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So we're thinking really about ibuprofen, naproxen, Feldene. Now, they don't work to reduce your inflammation because inflammation's getting a bit more aggressive throughout your body. So then they might think about using steroids. And they could be inhaled, they could be applied topically, or they could be ingested. So therefore, they're working sort of throughout the body, a more systemic approach. But remember, they're a steroid, they're a hormone, so they come with side effects. And you cannot start and stop steroids without a weaning process. And don't forget, topically, when you apply it to your skin, 80% of what you apply to your skin is absorbed into your body. And it can still have an effect on your hormone levels. So steroids still aren't working. So then they enter the inflammatory cascade a bit higher up, and they start to think about DMARDs. Disease-modifying drugs. So this might include your methotrexate, which is a chemotherapy drug used to reduce inflammation, because somewhere somebody decided that they were going to stick a methotrexate injection into somebody with inflammation, their inflammation reduced. It isn't a drug specifically designed for an inflammatory response. And now they've brought out a new class of drugs. They're TNF-alpha suppressor drugs, otherwise known as biologics. The 2 main class of these on the market is Enbrel or Etanercept, or Humira. You may have heard of some of these. So that's kind of what a doctor has to offer where inflammation's concerned. So now let's think about what we've got to offer and how we can enter this inflammatory cascade. So we can be thinking down here about using ginger, turmeric. A bit higher up, we can be thinking about omega-3 fish oils. A bit higher up, we can be thinking about quercetin. And even higher up, we can be thinking about SCRMs. And actually, do you know that SCRMs products enter the inflammatory cascade higher than DMARDs? And bearing in mind, I've just told you that one of those is a chemotherapy drug. So SCRMs-based products, so on the market, I usually use Caprex and Caprex AI, because these are both SCRMs-based products. They've got other benefits in there as well. They've got rosemary and hops, and that's where the SCRMs-based product comes from. Now, each and every one of these drugs here comes with a side effect. Unless you are on something like warfarin, none of these drugs come with a side effect. The benefit of our natural approach is with somebody with chronic inflammation, we can actually enter the inflammatory cascade at every one of these points, and I regularly do. So if I've got somebody with an inflammatory disease, I enter all the way through that inflammatory response because I want to be working on reducing that systemic inflammation. So why do we have inflammation? So excess oils, high omega-6, processed carbohydrates, products high in saturated fats, and initiations, a cascade of free radicals and inflammatory change. Now, some of us are born with a genetic predisposition to inflammation. My daughter falls into that. Again, you can test your genetic profiling. You can look at your TNF-alpha. You can look at your interleukin-6 and your interleukin-10. You can look at your NF-kappa B. You can look if you are predisposed to an inflammatory condition. And these are the people that need this high level of support. So it's estimated that throughout most of the time, throughout most of human evolution, the ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 was much lower. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, EFA, should be between 3 to 1, as opposed to 15 to 1. Like I said, I reckon this is more like 20 to 1, as high as 40 to 1, especially in the American diet, the SAD diet, standardized American diet. The ratio ensures maximal conversion to both EPA and DHA, and corresponds to 5 to 8% of calories from omega-6 puffers and 1 to 2.5% of calories from omega-3, which is a minute amount of, the daily calorific intake. So where are people getting the rest of those calories from? Well, it's from the high carbohydrates. It's from the sugar that they're taking through the diet. That is the most calorific part of most people's diet. If you think about the optimal plate, okay, ideally 50% should be salads and vegetables. Of the remaining half, it should be split between protein and complex carbs with a portion of essential fatty acids. How many people are eating their plate to look like that? Not many. Fish. Is fish a good thing? I really like fish, big part of my diet. But where does your fish come from? Is your fish swimming in the ocean where it's been feminized because it's come into contact with estrogens? Or it's farmed fish that's right up towards the edge of the ocean where all of the rubbish is floating around in the water that they're swimming? Or is it fed on a high corn diet? That's definitely not going to be an optimal intake of nutrients. What I want my fish to be is wild Alaskan fish, right from the center of the ocean. So vegetarian diets. I think that, the vegetarian diet can be a very healthy diet, but it can also be a very poor quality diet. I have some really poor quality vegetarians on my caseload. Their diet consists of pizza and pasta, white bread, rather than, and they don't use, and their best source of protein is corn, which, as we all know, is not a good source of protein. I have to say my vegan population are usually better because it usually falls into using more beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, because they don't have those go-to-its to rely on, like the cheese. So if you're to have a good quality vegetarian diet, then you are at a lower risk of colon cancer and a lower risk of prostate cancer. But I think we need to be thinking about the quality of the vegetarian diet. I do know vegetarians that don't eat vegetables. That's not the ideal type of vegetarian diet. So not all vegetarian diets are protective, especially if they're eating a lot of, high calorie, high cholesterol, high saturated fat diets, like I said, incorporating a lot of cheese going in there. So diets high in fiber are protective against several types of cancer: colorectal, stomach, ovarian, endometrial, and breast. So fiber is an absolutely essential part of our diet. How are you going to get that? By eating the whole grain. Those white carbohydrates are devoid of the fibrous content. Those vegetables that have been peeled to death or boiled to death are not going to have the fibrous content in there. Things like apples, the fiber is just underneath the surface of the skin. So we want to be making sure we have it with the skin on it. So when people peel apples or peel the apples of children, that's going to devoid it of the high fiber content of it. And we've talked quite a lot about phytonutrients, how we get those essential micronutrients, those carotenoids, the flavonoids, those organosulfides. That's where we're going to get our indole-3 carbanols from. Do you know that daily consumption of fruit and vegetable, only 21% of adult men and 19% of women in Ireland are meeting the current target of 5 portions a day? I said that we need 7 to 9, and if you've got cancer, you've got 12. Count up how many you had yesterday. Did you meet your 7 to 9 portions in your day? I know I did, and I do that by incorporating a smoothie for breakfast. I probably get 4 or 5 before I've even left the house in the morning. I'll have a snack in the morning, which might be a piece of fruit and some protein. I'll have a salad at lunchtime, or some soup in the winter, or some leftovers from the night before. Again, in the afternoon, I might have, say, some veggie sticks and some hummus. And then in the evening, I might have a big stir fry. Lots of colour going in there. Probably got about 15 portions gone in throughout the course of the day then. So just check in with what you're doing. Maybe where children are concerned, you might want to think about motivating them with a sticker chart to ensure they've got that optimal amount of portions going in there throughout the course of the day. The American Journal of Epidemiology, risk of breast cancer is doubled in people with low blood levels of carotenoids. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, risk of colon cancer is significantly reduced with high carotenoid intakes. Journal of the National Cancer Institute, frequent consumption of tomatoes is associated with lower prostate risk. Why is this? It's the lycopene. So those different phytonutrients, you can read the list there. When was the last time you had kale in your diet or Brussels sprouts in your diet to get those indole-3? Brussels sprouts are still one of those things you either love or you hate. Do you love them? Can you teach yourself to love them? So those phytonutrients, they're full of antioxidants, full of immune stimulants, full of angiogenesis inhibitors, act as anti-proliferative agents, promote synthesis of detoxification enzymes. Whilst we're not allowed to use the word treatment, it's nutritional therapist. Surely this has to be a holistic approach. Holistic? Why have I put a W on it? To treatment. Okay, this is how we protect ourselves. So other anti-cancer nutrients, sulfur compounds of garlic, tumor growth inhibitors, cancer formation inhibition, garlic, anti-cancer, antifungal, anti-parasitic, antiviral. How many more foods can you have that have that many properties? How many drugs have that property? You've got a bacterial infection, you need antibiotics. You've got a viral infection, you need antivirals. You've got cancer, you need chemotherapy. But yet you can have foods out there that can have multiple actions. Folic acid, we've talked a lot about that today, about DNA protection. Beta-cytosterol, fruits and vegetables, tumor growth inhibition. It's going to protect the cells, prevent the tumors from proliferating. So, what about supplements? The position of the World Cancer Research Fund on synthetic antioxidants, vitamins and minerals. Supplements should not be used for cancer prevention or by cancer survivors. We still do not know enough nutrients in foods may have a different effect than isolated nutrients in a synthetic form. In numerous studies, beta-carotene supplements increase the risk of lung cancer by up to 28%. However, beta-carotene from food has protective effect of synergy with other nutrients. I'm going to disagree with this and say that I do use supplements with my cancer clients, and I do use supplements as part of my cancer prevention. And I'm going to go into supplements with you in just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think food is the first. Food is my primary medicine, but nowadays, is our soil selenium rich? Gone are the days where a farmer would leave a field empty for the soil to cultivate all of the nutrients in it, and do crop rotation. Now, there's too many of us on the population, we all need to be fed. So what we want to focus on is typical Western diet is low in fiber, high in fats, high in refined carbs, and high in protein. High energy intake, high animal protein intake, and high in animal dairy products. Low in phytochemicals and low in fiber. High in oils, fats, high in omega-6, and high in processed foods and sugars. We want to turn this around, guys. We don't want to live by the typical Western diet anymore. Is it enough that we just exist? Take cancer away. How many people are in a disease state? I'm not prepared to live my life like that. I want more from my life, and we deserve more from our life.